beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome and hello. My name is Renika Hamilton. I am your self-care guru, your guide, and your cheerleader, here to give you all the inspiration I can for self-care inspiration. All right, so today I'm going to be unscripted. Kind of trouble I can get into with that. Not too much trouble. Anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about a self-care topic regarding how you respect other people in their self-care journeys. It's a very important thing as you're on your own self-care journey. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some conversations I've had this week and give you some examples of some things and share a little bit of wisdom, if I can say that. And then, like I say, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. And be sure to subscribe to my channel so you never miss an opportunity for self-care inspiration. Now, before we get started, let me remind you to go ahead and sit back, grab your favorite drink. I have mine, of course. Get cozy, and let's nourish our inner selves together. All right. So this week, I've had some really interesting conversations about self-care and people's journey and how fast somebody might be on a journey versus how slow somebody else might be on a journey. Specifically, there are individuals in my life, and I'm pretty sure you might have some of these people too, they have great intentions. Let me start off there. They have extremely great intentions. They want to see the best in you. And so when you make a move or you do something or you talk to them about something, their immediate response or immediate action is to tell you or observe you doing something, to come and say, if you did this, then, things would be so much better for you. So a lot of times when people do that, I used to allow people to do that, and it just made me feel bad. And it was like a thing that my therapist says is called getting validation from somebody else. So I would actually go and check in with people, with these same type of people. So I kind of probably created this problem that I have right now that I'm working on correcting. But what happens is anytime I have a problem or something that I just want to pitch it off of them first before I make a move or make a decision, that was me trying to get validation from them, just because I didn't trust my own self. I didn't believe in myself and my abilities to resolve issues on my own. The problem with that is everybody is an individual person. That's why it's so important to understand who you are as a person, and understand what your likes, what your desires are, what makes you tick, what makes you excited, what keeps you motivated, what keeps you inspired, and stick to those principles so that when you get into a space where you're not inspired, you're not feeling great, you're not able to move forward, you'll know within yourself what to do versus relying on other people, because sometimes what they do may not necessarily work for you. I am a strong believer that sometimes when you're looking for advice because you just genuinely don't know, you don't have any idea how to make the next move, what to do on something, is totally okay. And that's why we have friends. That's why we have support groups to help us. It's because you can say, hey, I'm dealing with this situation and I really need your help to help me get through this. Then you're inviting people to come in your space and share. It's not necessarily a validation thing because you don't know the answer. You're needing the answer and you're asking for advice. That's different. When you know the answer within yourself and you are just that unsure, or just want to validate and make sure, see if anybody else thinks like you, that is not being reliant on yourself. And it opens up the opportunity for someone to give you advice for doing something the way they would do it. A lot of times when people give you advice about something, it's usually the way they do things. Rarely do people take the opportunity to understand who you actually are and cater the message and cater the advice to your style and what you do. So I can give you several examples of that. I have had friends, I have a teenage daughter, and the way some some of my friends discipline their teenagers is different than the way I would discipline my teenager. So if we're having a similar problem, if I get advice from them, it might be different than how I normally approach conversations or things with my teenager. So I've learned very quickly not to do that. Like, I should trust my own instincts. I know what works for me and my daughter and our relationship, and the discipline that's needed. So I'm not going to be so reliant on somebody else's style that doesn't really work for my style and my relationship. So I was talking to a friend earlier this week, and we were talking about whenever you encounter different situations, sometimes if he is in a zone and somebody comes and interrupts him, let's say he has a client and they come and throw him off his game for some reason, and they're cursing at him, irate and all upset. First thing that he does is he processes his anger with that client at that moment. It's making him upset. He processes it real quick. He might put him on hold or say, let me call you back. He gets off the phone, takes some deep breath. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And then he's able to switch back into resolution mode. Calls that customer back. All right, I know, we're not on the same page here. Let's figure out what we can do to get back on the same page. Whereas somebody like myself, it's going to take me a little bit longer than an instant second to get back on track and get that resolution done. For me, if I was in that very exact same situation, I actually need a day probably. So I'll say, hey, okay, thank you for bringing this to my attention. If you could give me about 24 hours, I will look into some options for you, and then I'll get back to you. What might happen when I hang up or with that client and start thinking about the resolution, I'm not even thinking about a resolution first. I'm thinking about me. How did that make me feel? What happened? What did I do wrong? How can I process this? What am I going to do better so that next time I don't have this type of situation? That's just how I process. So it might take me a day before I can get myself back into the spirit and the motivation to get back into resolution mode. And I was told by my friend, that's too long. You're taking too long. You need to just get up and get back into it and keep going. Like, get over it, process it, and get through it. Well, the issue is we're both different people. So the way that he gets to the solution is different than the way it's going to take me to get to the solution. And I gave it this example. Let's say that you're in a math class, right? And the teacher has just taught you, like, whenever, I forget when we learned this, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, whatever, 5 times 5 equals 25. And she taught you how to get to the 25, the different ways you can get to that answer. So you can start with a scale of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. You can memorize 5 times 5 is 25. You can do the math in your head to get to it. There are going to be different people that have a different way, a different version of getting to the answer. But just because somebody else uses one method to get to it doesn't mean that the other person that uses a different method is any less competent of getting to the number. If y'all got to the same place, then it doesn't matter the process that it took. Now, in cases where there's a time-sensitive thing to it, yes, it would matter, because the quicker you could get to the solution, the better, everything will work out in a time-sensitive situation. But I'm not even talking about time-sensitive. I'm talking about just getting to a resolution. So if we're getting to the resolution at some point, and everything is okay with the time, the number of time the length of time that it takes you to get there, then it shouldn't matter how you got there. It should matter that you got there, right? And so I cautioned him, my friend, on, being patient with people like myself, who take a little bit longer route to get to where they are. And it's very important not to discourage them from getting into their feelings. Now, sometimes this is where you would need therapy, professional help, but sometimes people do in situations way too long. So I can't tell you what the right answer is for how long you should process a situation or process your emotions. That's between you and your therapist for figuring that out. But for me, it works if I have like a 24-hour cycle. Just let me feel it, let me deal with it, and then get through it. But just because it takes you quicker to get through it doesn't mean that my taking 24 hours is like a bad thing. I'm going to eventually get there. It's just my process. And we should respect each other's processes. So I just think it's so important that on the self-care journey that you remember, if you're on your own self-care journey, somebody else might be on theirs as well. Just because they're taking a different route to get to their self-care and get through their journey on their own doesn't mean that their way is right or my way is right. It's right for them, and what's right for me is right for me. Period. The other thing I do want to caution everybody about too is there are a lot of people with helpful natures. I'm one of those people. I love to help people, and I have to really check myself. I did this week actually. I have to check myself because often I am in situations I want to be so helpful. And somebody will say something, and I'm always using it as an opportunity to lecture, to teach. This is a teaching moment. So somebody could say something like, oh my gosh, I just hate when people, always come and ask me for money. And I just hate that. It's just so terrible. I just hate it. I'm going to start, telling them, no, I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the conversation is. I'm so eager to help. I'm like, oh, well, if you do this, I do this, and this works for me, and all you got to do is say no, and then give them some resources and help them out. But they didn't ask. You notice how in that conversation they just vented. Maybe they needed me to support them at that moment. Maybe they just needed me to say, oh yeah, I understand. And leave it at that. And say, yes, I think that's a good solution for you. Whatever it is, just be supportive in the moment. Sometimes people are not always looking for you to help them escape from their problems. Sometimes they just are processing. And sometimes it's helpful to speak those things out loud to somebody, almost like validation, not always validating, like always depending on somebody to validate yourself is not a really good thing every time, but sometimes it's okay to kind of do a pulse check, check the temperature, see what everybody else thinks on a certain situation, because you just want to, just see how different people will respond in a situation. That's totally okay. But I know that people know how to ask for help. So just because somebody vents about something doesn't mean that's an invitation for you to just go in and start teaching them and giving them that moment of, well, just do this. Because sometimes it's a little bit off-putting. Sometimes people might feel like, oh my gosh, every time I share something or talk to this person, I'm always gonna be reprimanded or given a lecture, or I could never get support. And what happens when people start to feel a certain way, things start to change, and they might not want to talk to you much anymore. They might not want to say anything that's going on in their minds, because you're always using it as a teachable moment. I had to learn that the hard way. My daughter said that I do that all the time. And then I caught myself. I'm catching myself now. So I'm doing so much better of not using opportunities to teach people anything. If they want me to give them some advice, they have to ask for it, and I will be happy to share my thoughts. If they're not asking for it, then just offer my support. Sometimes maybe they don't know how to ask for it, and then in those cases I'll say, well, would you like to know what I would do in that situation? If they say yes, go ahead. If they say no, leave it alone. Then, as I'm thinking about it, sometimes people probably will say yes just because you're their friend. Maybe they really don't want to hear from you. So it's kind of best to just be supportive and let them ask if they really need the help from you. But those are just some of the things that I have been dealing with this week and thinking about and thinking through. Everybody's on their own self-care journey, and we all want to be great. We all want to feel excellent. We just have to make sure that on our own journeys that we're not infringing on somebody else's self-care journey, right? We're going to be good stewards of respecting self-care and being there for one another. So that's all that I had today. I just thought I'd come and just talk a little bit about this topic and share that little bit of wisdom this week. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your week and a great week next week. And don't forget to join me live here on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I talk about a lot of wonderful self-care topics and give you all the self-care inspiration that you can use. All right. So I'd like to thank you so very much for joining me today. I hope you found today's discussion somewhat helpful in any way. If you did, great. Leave me a comment. I'd love to see that. Don't forget again to like, comment, and share this video and subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday live on my page at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, just know that you deserve to feel your absolute very best. Thank you so much for attending. I hope you all have a great night. I love you so much. Bye.